Welcome to the Leaders Mindset Podcast. We're back with another live episode, bringing you illuminating conversations with leaders who are making an impact in business and as entrepreneurs and in our communities. Go ahead and put your questions in the chat. The real advantage to us being live is you can jump in and ask us anything you want, and we'll be keeping an eye on that chat as we go throughout the episode here. So today, we have Sean Gigremosa, founder of Claritiv. It's an AI platform that revolutionizes product development. I'm going to let him explain that. I'm not going to try to explain that to you. And I don't think there are too many topics in the startup world or otherwise that are hotter than AI right now. So we're all going to learn a lot, and we're all going to dig into some of the cool stuff and maybe some of the frightening stuff about AI today. So thank you for joining us, Sean.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Jason. I really appreciate it. And happy to be here.
Well, thank you for being here. And you and I have met, we probably met about 6 months ago, maybe a little longer, and you've been quite a fixture in our tech startup community here in Vegas and really active in it. So thank you for your participation in that and helping to grow and guide our community here. So what is Claritiv? What does it do? What problem does it solve? Tell me all about it.
So So Claritiv, I guess I call it a conversational AI platform. So what we do is we analyze and synthesize conversations so that we can generate insights from that. And really, how it started was, I'm in product, right? I'm in product management. I've been doing product development, product management for about 25 plus years. And as in my experience, the same problem kind of like happens over and over again. Like you're talking to customers, you say like they tell you, like their problems and what they need. You write it down, you try to understand it, then you say, oh yeah, I get it. And then you go to your developers and say like, this is what the customer asked for, or this is the feature that they want. And then your developer goes, yeah, I get it. And then they build it. And then you go back to your customer and then they go, this is not what we talked about. It's like, yeah, you got A, B, but where is C, D, E, F, G? You know what I mean? So, and that's not a rare occurrence. That happens over and over again. And it's nothing, there's nothing, it's not I want to say, I guess the proper, it's not a fault of product professionals. I think it's just a matter of like, there's just so many things going on that you can't really focus. And then if you're having this conversation, like there's things that get missed, right? So that's the reason why we built Claritiv, is to be able to make it so customer facing, like individuals can then just focus on the conversation. I can just focus on talking to you without having to worry about, like generating insights and writing down the main topics of that note. So that again, that's why we built it. And yeah, I've been like, the journey has been very exciting so far. As you mentioned, met you 6 months ago, and like really appreciate all the feedback and advice you gave us during our journey.
Well, I appreciate you. I appreciate everything you've done for us as well. It sounds like what you're describing, the pain point that you're filling in here, isn't unique to product development. This is something that when I was in the Air Force, we dealt with over and over and over again in the requirements process. And I think it's just kind of human nature. And, either the loudest things or the last thing you heard is the one that as a human being, we might think is more important. And that's one of the advantages that letting the robots do this, letting the AI do this, is that we don't face those problems that come from our very human brains doing very human brain things, right? So besides priorities, what are some of the advantages that the AI brings to helping with product development, or even some other kinds of customers you could be helping?
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, this is not specific to product. The problem isn't specific to product development or product management, right? Sales, any customer facing or any really individual in terms of conversations would be able to use it. We are focused on product development because that's what we know. Now, to answer your question, there is a lot of things that the AI can bring, right? So one of the main things that you just mentioned is we are so in love with our own products. I know I am. I know like every every product development, product management, or every kind of like professional in this field loves their solution. And you should love your own solution, right? Because you've spent a lot of effort, a lot of time building it. It's your baby. So who doesn't love their own baby? But the challenge there, because sometimes you get so in love with your own solution. And just a quick story: I was running or I'm still running a product kind of like roundtable with different product leaders, and one of the topics or one of the insights that was presented or was provided was product people have product, like we have product myopia, right? So we love our own things, and then and that bias kind of like blinds us from the main problem that our customers are facing, right? So we're not really hearing the problem. We're almost like, okay, well, this is my product and it's going to solve your problem, but we're not really understanding, or we're limiting our focus to the things that we like, that gets associated with our product, instead of like really fixing the challenges and desires and needs and problems of the customer, right? Because there could be other things that they mentioned, as you mentioned, is that it's not the last 5 minutes, it's not the person that shouts the loudest, but it's the it's the nuggets of information that get buried with all of the things that's happening.
Yeah, that's why we tell startup founders, like we talked to you about, is go show this to 100 people and get their feedback before you even try to sell it, right? And then if they're interested, get a pre-sale. So this is something that Claritiv can help with. Startup founders should still go do that, but this is something that the AI can help with to maybe help you kill your darlings a little bit as you develop your product.
Exactly, and then and to be honest, we're using it ourselves, right? To try to refine and I guess build our solution. So like as you mentioned, I talked to probably, I don't even know how many at this point, definitely over like maybe over 200, 300 folks just talking about this business, both in person and online. And those conversations, or at least the ones that we can record, we put it into our platform to try to, I would say, bring up the themes that is problematic, the themes that is going to be, like really beneficial. And it helps us prioritize like which ones that we should focus on. One of the things that we do within our platform is by identifying those themes and being able to show how many conversations, how many meetings did you have that talked about this specific topic. So just going back to what you said, it's not about who shouts the loudest. It's not about the biggest company that you're working with, like, yep, because they, like they're our most important customer and they, like this is such a big problem for them. But it could be so little from your product perspective. It couldn't, it may not necessarily be the ones that really move, like move your strategy or move your goal. But there's this other theme that 50, 100 of your customers have been complaining about or talking about that may be more beneficial, that you should probably prioritize. And that's what we're trying to build up.
I love it. I love how you can bring data that product developers or entrepreneurs or even other kinds of businesses can, using Claritiv, that data would be lost in meetings, but now you can bring that to the surface to help with real decision making.
Exactly.
So you weren't always a startup founder. You've got a background in product development. How did we get here? What were you doing, and what made you take the leap from the relative safety of doing product development for big companies and take the big risk on entrepreneurship?
The main, I guess, trigger for me is early last year, or maybe 2 years ago. Like the technology to be able to generate these types of insights has been available. So I was like, okay, well, because this is possible and this problem I've faced over and over again, I can actually fix it now, right? So, that's, like there's this, I think there's this book by Matt Higgins, I think it's Burn the Boats. Mm-hmm. And what, like that was, it really made, when I read that book, it really made sense to me. I was like, like, because the solution, to be able to generate these types of insights is available, and we can build on top of it. Like there's, and now with the advent of, like product is such, or product management is such a hot field. There's a lot, there's tons of overworked product managers. I think there was a report that says around 66% or something like that of senior PMs are looking for a job right now because, like in this remote and global world that we worked on, like we're working 10, 15-hour days. I have engineers and developers in, let's say, in the Middle East or India, and I have a customer in, like in the US, in Asia, in Europe that you have to talk to all the time. Like, you know what I mean? You don't have time, you don't have focus, and it's problematic, right? So by understanding that, I was like, I can help. You know what I mean? We can make this better. We can make, like my goal has always been, I can make product professionals more efficient, more effective, more productive by providing these tools. Like, because I hated the fact that, like my teams were working 10, 15, 12-hour days. You know what I mean? So it's like, I want them to enjoy life. I don't want them to love their job. Like we came into product because we love our job, not because, like we're stuck in back-to-back meetings.
I heard something great in everything you said, and productivity, efficiency, saving time, saving money, those are all important. But what I heard that I think is really, really impactful for leaders that you talked about in there is focus. It helps bring focus to what you're doing. And that is something that, you can't trade time for focus. You can't trade money for focus. And I think that's so fantastic. I think that's such an amazing thing that Claritiv brings and that leaders can use, and not just in product development or product management, but if you're a leader looking to find more focus, this is actually a tool that can help you do that. I think that's amazing. And speaking of focus, you're one guy. This is a big job. You're not doing this all by yourself.
No.
How did you assemble the Claritiv team? Who were you looking for? What were you looking for? What was your approach to building this team that's taken you from an idea to where you are now?
To be honest, initially, it's really people in my network. So it's folks that I worked with. It's the folks that I work with within their network. And really how the main thing is assembling the team that understands our vision and understands where we want to go and believes in that, like the change that we want to make. Right. So I talked to, to several folks and I discussed like, hey, this is what we want to build. What do you think? And the ones that kind of like came along with me for the ride per se are the ones that truly believe on the value that our solution can bring. And yeah, so it's not just me. Like there's about, I would say seven, 8 of us now in the team, and some of them like joined pretty recently. One actually was was one of the folks that was testing our solution. And when she kind of like came on board, she was like, she really believed it. She really believed the value that we're providing, and she wanted to be a part of it. So like that's what we're looking for. Now, eventually we'll probably scale for other roles as well, where we have needs. Specifically right now, probably within the next 6 months, it's mostly about traction and identifying people that believe, but also have the experience to be able to get us to that next step.
Well, you're reading ahead to my next question, because that's what it is where are we going in 2024? I know from conversations with you that you fully intend to scale. You're looking for that traction. You're trying to blow this up and go big. And we don't always have the luxury of finding that, in the beginning, we can find that core small group of people who we just tell them what it is and they get it right away. But you're looking to grow. What's your approach going to be to bring those people in who may be talented, but don't quite get it? And you need to, how are you going to bring that next round of talent in for Claritiv?
From a talent perspective, I think I'm big on, to be honest, I'm big on mentoring. So meaning they may not necessarily have the proper skills yet, but they have the right mindset. So meaning, like they have the drive, they have the wish to get better, and they have the hustle, right, to get things done. And from a traction perspective, especially in sales, those that's very important. Is to be able to like, okay, well, like those are the kind of like the values that we want to have, is that like those folks that always want to get better. As you mentioned, they may not necessarily have the right skill sets yet, but they could be, and they can learn. And to be honest, like when I was leading teams prior to Claritiv, like the one thing that I've always said to my team is that it's okay if you think that this job or the previous jobs that you have is not your last one. But I want to make sure that you're learning from this job, and that I'm providing you with the right kind of like tools to like to make you better, not just for the task that you have at hand, but where you want to take your career. So I think like that to me is more important from a people perspective. The folks that want to grow, because if I want traction, if I want to scale, if I want to grow, I need those. I need folks that have that same drive, to be able to get us where we want to be.
Sorry, just had a little technical difficulty on this end. I was just kind of looking at stuff. Yeah, it's so great when you can find folks who have the right mindset, and I think it's great that you are always, as a leader, looking to mentor those folks and set them up for success in the future. I think that's something that's lost in corporate world. I think is a lot of corporate folks feel like if I invest in my team, if I develop my team, I'm going to lose them. And you seem to have an opposite mentality on that, which I think is really what's contributing to your success in the past and contributing to your success now. All right, you went to CES this year. How was it?
It was amazing. I mean, like, I think what's great about CES is that, it really gives you a good grasp on the innovation that's kind of like been happening in the space. And like there's one area within CES where all of these different startups are kind of like huddled into one hall, and just walking through. Like, to me, like the best day that I had at CES was probably the day that I spent at that hall.
That was my favorite day when I went to CES a few years ago. That was my favorite day, is spending in the startup hall.
Exactly. It's because you sort of like I love being with startup founders and innovators, because like they get like it's the understanding of the problem that they're trying to fix. It's understanding of the solution that they're trying to build. It's that it's that engagement. It's that excitement, right? And I think every startup founder should be excited about what they're building. Every startup founder should be excited about the problem they're trying to fix. And like that's what you get from that startup hall. Like, yes, you get it from kind of like the big areas as well, but I think it's a different emotion. I think when I walked in that, but yeah, regardless, I think like CES is probably one of the premier kind of like innovative conferences that you can. I always I really enjoyed my time this year.
Did you have a goal going into CES this year? What did you think you were going to get out of it? What did you end up getting out of it?
Yeah. From a goal perspective, it was pretty open, meaning like I'd like to, kind of like see what's in this space. Like thinking like, okay, if I want to scale, if I want to, what are the things that I can improve within Claritiv? What are the different tools? Or even hardware that we can incorporate into our product line? Are there things there that we can see? For example, from a hardware perspective, with what we do, can we incorporate a tool to be able to, help analyze offline meetings, right? So, it's not necessarily a Zoom call. It could be an impromptu meeting that are still very important to synthesize. But other than that, it's really just to, again, be aware of all the things that's happening in this space. AI was really big. I think AI is, probably going to be, big for the next couple years or so. But
I don't think AI is never going to be big. I think it's always going to be big from now on.
Exactly. I think it's just a matter of like what areas and what focus. So I think last year, Gen AI was really big. Are there other aspects that could be expanded as well? I saw a lot of like robo cars. Actually, there's one company, I think it was Fix, but they had a robo car, and which was really interesting, where they can kind of like their services is being able to do mobile offices and kind of like in this automated vehicle, right? So which is kind of cool. A lot of really really engaging stuff. I thought one of the coolest thing I saw was the transparent TVs, and again, innovation itself. I think it's amazing.
Yeah, I was going to ask you what the coolest thing you saw besides Claritiv was at CES. I didn't go this year, but you and I were at an event a couple of weeks ago. They were talking about the transparent TV screens, and that sounds incredible to me. I mean, the idea that you're going to be able to have a transparent window and then turn that into a TV on command and off again is going to be incredible. The mind races at all the possible applications.
No, for sure. Sorry, I was just going to add. I think, and then we ask, like one of those manufacturers, is this an OLED TV or is it just like kind of like? And they're like, "Yep, it's full 4K." I was like, "It's pretty amazing. You can get that much, kind of like clarity in visuals in a transparent screen. It's like it's still very." It seems so impossible to me, but I guess that's the product of human innovation, right? It's like nothing is impossible as long as you have you have the dreamers that dream and try to build those solutions.
Yeah, we're living in a wondrous age, and there are lots of people with lots of capital who are willing to invest in wondrous ideas. And you've been doing a lot of pitching. You're getting ready to kind of do some fundraising and look for capital. I've seen you pitch a couple times. It's been amazing. What are you learning from pitching to audiences and investors?
What I'm learning is that like the use case or the beachhead, at least that we wanted to try within Claritiv, may not necessarily be the perfect one. And I think it's the ability or the openness to pivot to kind of like pivot and go where the market is really pulling, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like one of the challenges with startups is always going to be, it's not about building the product. At least for me, building the product is probably the easiest because there's a lot of folks that can help you build your solution. I think what's harder, even if you've talked to a lot of like those hundreds of people, right? I think what's harder is actually identifying like that market fit, identifying that pull, and like it's a learning. I would say it's a learning experience. Like one time it could be like, let's say, like a different focus, but then you talk to different folks, I would say VCs or capital folks, and they say like, okay, well, this is like you should focus on this market. I think what's important for startup founders is to synthesize all of that data and really focus on, okay, well, all of those are great input, but I can't serve everyone, right? Especially initially. So I need to be able to identify where and what market and what messaging can I reach, like a persona group to get my initial traction. And that's what we're refining right now within Claritiv, so we can get that that scale, or that initial scale.
Yeah, if only someone had created an AI tool that could take all that kind of input from conversations and synthesize it into setting those kinds of priorities, right?
Yeah, of course. I don't know who. Like, maybe somebody needs to.
So besides product market fit, which is probably the most valuable advice anyone can give to startup founders and entrepreneurs, what other advice do you have for entrepreneurs who are kind of where you were a couple months ago, putting their pitch together and getting ready to go in front of investors?
I think one of and this is, it's not my advice, and it's something that I really believe in, or it seems like I'm trying myself, but it's actually advice that I got from another founder. So you know him as well, James Ritchie for JewelFit. One of the things that he mentioned that I really like take to heart is just start pitching, and just just do it, because like that first pitch might be bad, but it'll help you and it'll make you better, so that the more you do it, the better you'll be, right? Because you'll hear all the objections, you'll hear all of the feedback, you'll hear all the comments from from the investors that are interested in your product, or also from investors that are not interested in your solution, right? So it's being able to help you craft that best message. And as founders, it's never going to be perfect, regardless of what we think. Like that first deck I probably created was terrible, but I think it's what's important is taking all of that feedback to kind of like refine and refine and refine and refine. I'm a big agile advocate and practitioner, where I say, like, okay, you have that target that you want to go, and as long as you're aiming towards that direction, and it could be zigzaggy, but that refinement, those little tweaks can help you get there. But you're never going to know, you're never going to be able to kind of like realize or know unless you do it. And like, again, just hats off to James. That's I would give that advice as well to other founders that's thinking about it. Just do it. Just pitch. Just build your product to start it.
Yeah, I think you have to. I think I've seen too many founders who they're trying to get the pitch airtight. They're trying to get all the numbers perfect. They're trying to get the messages perfect, the words perfect, the pictures perfect on the slides, and then because it all gets blown apart the first time you sit in front of someone you're pitching, in front of investors, or whether it's a panel or what pitch competition, whatever it is, it all gets blown apart. I'm not saying go in and do it badly or do it half-assed.
Yeah.
Go in, do a good job, do your best, but you're going to hear something from that first panel of people you pitch that's going to make you reconsider everything.
Exactly. And one of the mindsets I've always had, and then I've told other product folks this, is that I love it whenever I show up, just from a product perspective, whenever I show that first product, I would rather people hate it than people love it. Because if they have objections, if they have challenges, if there's things that they don't like, then that actually gives me the data to know, like, okay, now I know what I can fix. You know what I mean? So I think that's the same thing. That's the same mindset for, like doing a pitch. Is I would rather, like, okay, well, here it is. And this is my pitch. And this is where, like my mindset was at that time. But then that feedback is valuable. That feedback is gold. And that, I would rather have a bad feedback, because then I know, okay, now I know where I'm not, now I know where my pitch isn't really communicating properly. Okay, I know that now I know what other things that I can fix, I can improve on. I think having that mindset is, like, it's going to be very beneficial to any startup founder.
Yeah, one of the favorite things I see when I see startup pitches in front of a panel or investors is when somebody says, well, I wouldn't use it for that, but I would use it for this.
Yeah.
And that opens all of our minds to the possibilities of what that technology and that startup can be. And I think that's some of the most useful advice that founders can get is, yeah, that's not the thing. This is the thing.
Exactly. And I think what the important part is to be open to those types of feedback. And again, like going back to what I said earlier, right? Sometimes us as product professionals, as startup founders, we're so in love with our solution. We're so in love with what we think, or our bias really of what we think our solution can do, that like we have blinders, and it's that we don't see anything else. It's like a horse with kind of like those blinders, and oh, this is what I'm focused on, right? So, but like getting that feedback, say, hey, I would use this for for this other thing, and just being open to that. Okay, well, like I know I have my initial, but that is actually giving me more ideas, and that's what makes it exciting. I think one of the first things, and just this is kudos to you, Jason. One of the first things when I met you, we had coffee, and that's one of the things that you mentioned to me is like, hey, it's a great solution. However, have you considered events? And at that point, I didn't even like think about events. I'm not in the event space. I had no idea. I had no experience, right? But that was something that like if I like thinking about scale and where we can scale this, just having that in the back of my mind. So whenever I have conversations with investors, how can you scale this? Well, if I'm going to start on product, or if I'm going to start on sales, as what was discussed during my last pitch competition where you were at, I can, like I can do product events. So from a growth perspective, there are these things in my arsenal. I might not focus on them right now, but I know I could eventually, once I have the right team, or once I have an additional team to be able to realize it.
Yeah, the old man has a good idea every now and then.
Oh, for sure.
But no, I'm glad that was helpful to you, and I'm glad it gave you an answer to a really common question that comes in pitching is, there's some potential in this vertical, but you got to look at other ones if you really want to scale, right? So I'm glad I was able to help you answer that question, because it's a hard question for some startup founders to answer because they're focused on one pain point right away.
Yeah.
Okay, so not everyone is as keen on AI as you and I are. There's a lot of doom and gloom out there, and I don't want to talk about the doom and gloom. I want to talk about, what do you think the positives of AI are, besides just with Claritiv, but how do you see AI shaping our future, the world's future, not just the tech space, not just, what Claritiv does and product development and events and that kind of stuff. In general, what do you see the benefits of AI are? How can it make our lives better?
To me, one of the biggest thing is always going to be efficiency. And hence the name Claritiv is clarity, right? So I've worked, or I've been a part of, or close to a lot of innovations in this space. So for example, in my previous role, we were looking at, like predictive maintenance, to be able to identify like, hey, let's just say, for example, your car needs to get its oil change. It's not about prescriptive where every 3,000 miles. It's based out of, based out of the data of how your, let's say your car is performing, then maybe you need to get it serviced, right? So the cost savings, the efficiency in that, to be able to make the right decision at the right time is very important. And this is where I think AI can really help, right? Because like these models are so great at being able to crunch all of these different data points to generate an insight. Now, all I need to do as a person is like, okay, well, I like these options. I'm going to decide on that, right? Instead of like, I'm going to synthesize and analyze and all of these different things and charts and graphs and blah, blah, blah. That takes a long time, right? That's one. And in the other area, I think it's just going to make it so much. I think the services that we're going to provide is going to be like so much better, meaning in the medical space, right? Or in the legal space. Just the time savings and the accuracy can increase, right? So that there's some, like I would say, there's some models that's looking at X-rays or whatnot to be able to detect anomalies, right? It's like all of these different anomalies, especially if you train these models really well, all of these anomaly detections, like for medical, like the healthcare, that we're gonna be able to identify things earlier is to me, I get so excited of where the benefits are, because it can be all over the place. It's identifying where it can help. And I think it's just the openness. What's important is to be able to be open to these types of solutions and understand how these models are trained. So is it, I think just not necessarily a doom and gloom, but it's to be able to depend, I guess, on the models that, okay, yeah, it is accurate, but if it's not, understand why it's not.
Yeah, it sounds like, and I never really gave this any thought until you brought it up just now. It sounds like one of the prime advantages of AI is it helps us turn data into information. When I was in the military, one of our biggest challenges as people was to take data that was collected by a bunch of machines, run through spreadsheets, and turn that into decision quality data for like a 2-star or a 3-star general, right? And we had to go, okay, how do we take this data? We as engineers understand this data. How do we turn this into decision quality information? How do we, right down to how do we put it on a slide with the right graphics to help a 2 or 3-star general who's not an engineer make a quality decision about something? And it sounds like AI is going to be able to bring all of that to our computers, to our fingertips, with well-trained models that we understand how they're trained, bring us all that decision quality information. So that's exciting, right?
It is. And I think this is where, I think it was like almost a year ago, like I saw a post on LinkedIn that said that we're in the knowledge age. And I truly believe that, we're not in the internet brought about the information age. We're like, we have information in our fingertips, right? But we have to kind of like synthesize and analyze and understand it. But AI actually kind of like changes that, where it's not the information age, it's not data, it's knowledge. Like it's the insights that it provides us. So it's the knowledge that it's, like the consumption of knowledge is so much easier with AI, which makes us be able to make really, I wouldn't say accurate, but really better decisions, right? Because in the end, it's still humans that need to be able to decide. I'm big on and I get one of the main data scientists that I've been working with a lot. I really kind of a lot of my AI knowledge comes to him. So I just want to name like Dr. Klaus Paul. One of the things that he always kind of like ingrained in me is that human in the loop. And I truly believe that it's us to be able to, like, is the insight correct? Yes, no. And having that human to be able to make those decisions, I think it's vital for a I want to say, like a better outcome in this I guess environment that we're in.
Well, it sounds like you're not worried about AI coming in and taking all of our jobs.
I don't think so. Oh, I'm not. And again, I think because just like any technology, just to be honest, and frank, there's going to be jobs that's going to be lost. However, there's going to be new jobs that's going to be created, right? Like if you think about, the steam engine, if you think about, cars, if you think about airlines, if you think about all these, if you think about the internet, right? You look at 20, 30 years ago, during the boom, like there's no web developers, there's programmers that building things, but now you have Python developers, you have all these web developers, right? So it's not, they may not necessarily be writing in C or Pascal or whatever, or BASIC or assembly language. But it will evolve our roles, and I think that's what AI provides us is the evolution of our roles, and new roles that come up because of this. I think it's and then the hope is that we will be more efficient and we will be more effective, and we will be more productive. But again, it's the understanding of, okay, well, how do I use these tools to make me more efficient, to make me more productive?
I love what you're saying, because I think one of the advantages that AI is going to be able to bring to us is we're all going to be able to start doing a lot more thinking, a lot more decision making, and a lot more focusing on the strategic big picture instead of spending a lot of time crunching data and making sure we crunch data right and checking our numbers and all the things that we've had to do, and then go find the time and energy to think big picture as well. So I'm really excited about that, and I'm chuckling because you mentioned Pascal, and that was the language I learned to code in all those years ago. And I don't code anymore for obvious reasons. So, what are some AI tools that people in any kind of job or business, what could they be using now to make their lives easier, especially in their jobs?
I mean, there's a lot, right? Depends. I guess it depends on the job, or what the output that you want to generate, right? So, I mean, everybody knows about Bard, about ChatGPT, about Claude, and being able to help you generate ideas and help you kind of like refine your grammar, or help you kind of like flush out some thinking, like Mid-Journey. Like there's tools that that generate videos, that generate social media posts, that generate kind of like images. So even a lot of the kind of like, I would say, the tools that we use right now, like Photoshop, they're incorporating, like Microsoft, right? They're incorporating these AI features into their tools to make it better. So it's hard to answer that question, because there's so many tools that are coming out that help with like with different use cases. We could probably spend an extra hour just talking about how, like AI tools in design, tools in content creation, AI tools in, like accounting and legal, and so.
Well, we'll have that conversation another time. But staying on the topic of tools, what are the tools, other tools, non-AI tools? What are the tools that you and your team use to keep Claritiv moving? And I'm going to apologize in advance here. The landscapers are showing up outside. I don't know if they're going to pick up on my microphone or not, but let's just keep going and see how things go.
Yeah, actually, it's fine. I hear you I don't actually hear anything aside from you, so I think it's good. The one things that we like, so now from a product perspective, we use a lot of Canva. So Canva is kind of like this design tool. We use Figma a lot as well. Within, like that mostly in the design aspect of Canva and Figma of Claritiv. From a like project management perspective, for development, we use Jira. I think everybody, or not every, a lot of companies use Jira. It's either Jira or DevOps, or these other tools. GitHub, of course, from a technical perspective, and really probably one of the most important for us is just WhatsApp. Because I have our team is global. So I have a few folks in Europe, in the Middle East, and here in the US, and even in Asia. Like communication is, like having proper communication is vital, right? So WhatsApp kind of like makes that easier, right? To be able to communicate to, to everyone. So
WhatsApp and not Slack.
Not Slack, because not everybody has Slack. And depending on where you are, I use Slack for other things. WhatsApp is easy enough to just, like for those kind of like quick conversations, right? So for example, the folks that do my social, kind of like the social media marketing for Claritiv is in the Philippines. So like giving them like having Slack for them doesn't, just doesn't make sense, because like it's my big thing is using the tools that are common with the folks that I'm kind of like interacting with, and then the best, or at least the most common denominator right now, it's WhatsApp. I don't want to impose a tool just to use it for a specific use case.
Love it, and I highly encourage that, because I've seen too many times people going, okay, we have to use these tools and switch everything we're doing because for some reason. So
yeah.
How have you liked starting a venture as part of the Vegas tech community? How do you like the scene here?
It's great. It's actually what's great about the Vegas community is it's still, I believe it's still growing, right? And I think it's like you get really great support from the founders that you have here. I want to say it's a small but growing community. But you really get great feedback. I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot from you. I've learned a lot from every person I've met in all the different aspects of starting this venture, right? From marketing to finance to funding to development, or just any really just topics. And I think because Vegas is not as, I want to say, big as, let's just say, the Valley, right? So or Austin or all these other main hubs. I think people are more open to help. And I'm not saying they're not open to help in other areas, but they're, every person that I've approached has been very willing to share their knowledge, because everyone wants to. I think everybody has the desire to make Vegas as kind of like the new tech hub, right? So everybody has that vision, that outcome, that goal, and it's getting to that together with that community, with the community.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm seeing a lot of folks working together. I see a lot of folks start, even just in the last 6 months or so, really a transition from folks kind of doing their own thing to working together, being open to advice, but not just being open to advice. I see a lot more of the founders mentoring founders that we've always talked about is what we need here. And I give you a lot of credit for that, and James Ritchie and some of the other folks we've talked about. But I'm seeing really great things, and I'm really excited about where we're going as well. So.
Yeah. One thing before you continue, one thing that I truly believe in, I think founders, being a founder is a lonely kind of like venture, right? Because you're at it by yourself with your team, and I think it's important. And I think, again, I'm gonna give credit to another founder, not in Vegas, but Bentley Wilson from Cartograph. They're in Salt Lake. Because there is that, one of the things I learned from him is that, we are all in this together, right? It's not me against you. It's not, but it's really believing in kind of like the scene, meaning the startup scene. And it's supporting each other, because in the end, we know what the challenges you're going through. Like, the founders know the challenges of other founders, right? And then being able to be open to share, to kind of like educate, to mentor, to train, yeah, that happened to me is important, and is very kind of like vital in this space.
My dog is barking at the landscapers. I wasn't shushing you, Sean. I was trying to shush her. We'll see. She's been very well behaved. It's been nice. Well, here we go now.
Yeah.
I love you mentioned the Utah tech scene. I love the Salt Lake tech scene. They've been such a great example for us, and given us such great advice trying to get our scene going here. What would you like to contribute to the Las Vegas tech scene?
The one thing that me personally, and I've been kind of like percolating this in my head, is just the product perspective. So there's a lot of hey, go to market or AI or whatever, but I haven't really seen one that's just kind of focused on product development or management in itself, right? And I think that's what I'd like to bring to to the Las Vegas scene is that, hey, do you want to understand product? Do you want to build the product? Do you want to know how to get this done? And I like me personally, I love product. I think it's my passion, and that's the one that I'm always open and willing to share to other folks that's willing to listen to my ramblings. So that's definitely what I'd like to bring to the Vegas scene.
That's fantastic. We love that. We love founders talking to each other and helping founders out and just building the community. It's so great. How have your views on teamwork and leadership changed as you've shifted from working in corporate to being an entrepreneur?
I think it's the one thing with, like, I guess, big corporate is it's almost like you don't necessarily, like, you have, whenever they say priorities in the corporate world, there's usually like 5. Like, these are our main priorities for this year, and then we're gonna kind of like focus on that. And to be honest, in a corporate world, a lot of it is it's almost the out of sight, out of mind. So if you're not there, or you're in a different city or a different country from where everybody that's kind of like like developing, it's very hard to get things done. Just to be honest, and I think, like, my mindset that change is like having that focus, right? And this is where I said, like it's almost like in the corporate world, there's a thing like multitasking. Like, I'm able to multitask. So, like, those people that can multitask is like celebrated because they can get a lot of things done with the same amount of time. But to me, it's almost like shifting that mindset to, like, I don't really believe in multitasking. It's more about, like, okay, get me one thing. If you had to choose one, like, you have to choose one. What is that one thing that you need to get done this week? And focus on that. And if there's other things, then yeah, we'll put it. But, like, there has to be just that one thing that you can put your effort on. And to be honest, I didn't get that mindset. I learned from the corporate world, but I think it's just I learned that from my previous role at Rolls. They had this HPC concept, but I just basically took that and then kind of like scaled it to just like hyper focus on just one thing per person.
Yeah, and I think we all at some point in our careers go through that transition where we realize we need to focus on one thing. And what's really important for us as leaders is that we do our best through our words and actions to try to teach that lesson to others, because it's real easy as a leader to say, okay, do this and this is important now, and this is also important, and that's important, and like, it's all important, we got to do it all.
Yeah.
And that's not helpful to our teams. It's
no. Exactly. Like, when I forgot where I heard this, but and again, all credit to whoever said it, is that when everything is important, nothing is important. Right. So I think like that's the hardest skill as well, is to just make that decision to say, like, this is what we need to work on. And to be able to make the decision, you still have to you need the data to back that up. But so it can't just be based out of like gut feeling, right? But but regardless, being able to decide on that one thing is more important than being right on deciding on that one thing. Does that make did that make sense? Like, I think it's the action of deciding is more important than being right. Yeah,
you won't get any argument out of me. Decision-making process and making clear decisions is far more important than getting to the right answer, whether that's through chance or whatever way you got there. If you can create a repeatable, solid, data-driven decision-making process, you're going to have more decision-making wins than if you just go with your gut and get one right every now and then.
Yeah, and I think it's the important part is, like, even if you get it wrong, you learn from what you got wrong, and then that can then feed your kind of like process, your decision making process to make moving forward, right? I think what that, yeah. So anyway.
Yeah. So speaking of getting things wrong, what was one of the best mistakes you've ever made, and what did you learn from it?
At Claritiv or just
in general, we're not going to discriminate.
Okay. Well, there was I want to say, I wouldn't say it's the best mistake, but it's the one that I remember fondly. There was a project, and I guess it's maybe not so much as a mistake, but like it was one thing that, like I really learned a lot from. There was a project I did for my previous company, and I thought I did everything proper, right? So I was like, hey, I talked to users, I talked to kind of like the end users, and we built the user, we built the solution, and then over kind of like a couple sprints, we showed it with kind of like the different stakeholders, and one of the main stakeholders just basically tore us a new one, and really kind of like gave it to us like, hey, this is not correct. This is, like, you don't understand the needs at all. It was it was a very interesting meeting, to say the least. And that to me kind of like was a great experience, because it's really trying, what it taught me was trying to get like different perspectives and making sure that you have not necessarily the buy-in, but you have the input from all the stakeholders that can drive your decisions, right? And I guess the good thing about that was, like, once we understand the needs and the problems that that stakeholder kind of presented, we were able to pivot and change, and delivered, like a couple of sprints later, kind of like what they wanted. So that was probably one of the, I think that, again, I wouldn't say it's a mistake, but it was a very humbling experience to be yelled at for doing that, what you thought was right, but wasn't. But I did learn a lot from that.
I had a couple of those in the Air Force and since the Air Force, and it doesn't hurt us all to be a little humbled as long as we learn from it. But yeah, it's a lesson I think we all have to learn the hard way sometimes.
Exactly. No, for sure.
You have a lot of really exciting things coming up. You have a lot of things you're really positive about, which is great. But what keeps you up at night? What are the significant challenges you think you're going to have to face, and how are you going to face them?
Again, just to be a little bit selfish, like this, like Claritiv keeps me up at night. This is my main kind of like building this venture is my main focus right now. And there's all different challenges, right? There's all things in building a business. There's that I know I can't do by myself. So it's really trying to focus on where I can kind of like provide the most value so that we can get traction and growth. And one of the things is, like just getting the right messaging, you know what I mean? So like understanding our, kind of like our personas, and trying to get the right messaging that will not necessarily attract, but, they can relate to. So, and then they can see like, okay, well, this is the value that you're providing. And aside from that, it's just really, it's the health of family, right? So I think making sure that the family is provided and happy, and we still, kind of like enjoy life and play with the dogs, and like all of that good stuff. I think you have to have a kind of like that balance sometimes, because it can't be too focused on one thing all the time.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because we ask these questions a lot on this podcast, and we give the answers when we go on these podcasts, and sometimes we forget what really matters, which is the family and the friends and the loved ones in our lives. So and maybe it's your family, but who's someone